genders are there, Peter? How many genders are there?
I would like to start this off kind of with more of a non-numerical answer, but the way I view it, there's two sexes, right? You have
Yeah,
your
yeah.
medical sexes, male and female. You go to the hospital. Are you this? Like we have to treat you based on that. And then with genders, I'd say at least three is my answer.
So what's
Because
the third one?
if you look historically in language, since language has been spoken, a majority of language has used a neuter pronoun. If you look at German, der, die, das, what's das? It's it. So I think if you're going to base that off of kind of conserving past traditions for obviously conservatives, then for the longest time, civilization has recognized a third gender. There's been people who have identified as it. It's been used in language. So I think the neuter gender is the at least third.
So you think the third gender is an it?
Yes, neuter.
Okay, I mean, very interesting. I don't know how much they like to be called that, but I mean, okay.
It's grammatically that's how it is.
But it is
so
true, yeah,
yeah.
You're all right. Grammatically, it's not they them. It would be it that, right? But
Yeah.
So I think though the reason why we've always had that sort of third gender pronoun is not because past societies have viewed there to be a third gender. It's just a
It's
general
inanimate objects.
Yeah, or if you don't know if because correct in English you're supposed to say he or she, but a lot of times we'll just say they as a vague, whatever, just to describe if you don't know the gender or something. So I don't know. I don't think that's a third pronoun, a third gender. I just think people have always done that because there are things that are non-gendered or you don't know the gender, so you just have to have a third classification. I think that's just linguistic.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't have a problem with someone saying like I don't want to identify with a gender. I think it's called non-binary. But if you want to go without either one, I think that should be recognized as a third. And for the at least, if you want to identify what you want to identify as, that goes right by me. I don't really have a problem. You want to be this, you want to be that, you want to be whatever the neo pronouns are, the fairy pronouns. So what? That's my response. I don't. If you want to say there's only two genders, and someone whines about it. Well, you're entitled to believe there's only two genders, just like they're entitled to identify as more than two genders. So
let's do the thought exercise then. So if I came out, like Piers Morgan said, and said I want to be a two-spirit penguin, would you recognize me as a two-spirit penguin?
I think it would be a little ridiculous, but if that's what you wanted, for my respect, I would.
Okay, I mean, I understand that, I guess. So your take is basically, if someone wants to be this or that, you just don't really care. It's sort of almost like a socially libertarian take. Is that sort of what you're saying about it?
I think because gender has been usually recognized as a social construct. So I think to say we can limit it, so like it needs to be limited to two when it's something so obviously social constructs grow, expand over time, or they can contract too, based on whatever society's saying. I'd say it's like in terms, there's definitely more than two.
So here's my problem is that you can say, I'll just respect whatever you want me to call you, what you want me to call you. I mean, that's fine. But I think ultimately what you're seeing now is that society is going to have to decide one or the other, which is true, right? Either there are two genders or there are this spectrum, multi-gender, 72 genders, whatever it is, right? Because what happens inherently is very often people are going to want to have to decide something is true or not objectively, or in their eyes objectively, and then assert it on everyone else, right? And so now what you're seeing, I mean, if you're gonna say, oh, I'll respect it, you don't have to respect it, that's fine, that's fair. But now you're basically seeing it's kind of in some ways becoming state mandated in schools and all that stuff, workplace, whatever. So we're reaching a point where it's not enough to say it's your personal opinion whether or not you want to respect someone's other genders. And so that's my issue. And so I think I would like an answer from you genuinely deep down, and not just in terms of, I'll respect whatever people want to be called. That's fine. But I think at some point we have to decide, what do you really believe is true deep down? Do you think there's two genders? Do you think there's 3, 72, infinite? Like, what's your actual thoughts deep down on it?
I really would say deep down that in terms of gender, obviously I don't want to deflect and do the whole gender sex split, but if we're talking solely about gender, as many as we decide there are. That's my true deep down answer.
Okay, so you think it's just basically like made up, right? Then it's
I would
whatever.
say a spectrum. Absolutely, it's made up.
Okay, so anyone can identify as basically their own gender. You can make them up on the spot or whatever, right? Is that
sure? Yeah,
Okay.
I would be behind that.
So if that's the case though, right, then why do we make it a scientific thing? Because you see, like, they try to say, well, the scientists are saying that it's a real thing, and and then why do we cut the number at 72 or 3 or whatever? I think that's where it gets confusing. Is it just this, that's my personal identity, this is how I personally identify, or is this something that, as they try to argue, is something sort of objective? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, identity, I would say, in terms of identity, like it's pretty objective that my name's Peter. I can go change my name. It would be objective that I'm now Jeremy, right? So I think if you want to do that with gender, which is an identity thing, it should be the same way. We should hold it to the same standard.
Okay, I mean, interesting opinions, I suppose. So let's see, where else could we take this conversation?
If you'd like, I mean, I could explain the way I have it. I call it the three-forked breakdown, where I say the difference is you have gender, which is your societal, cultural thing. You have sex, which is your medical, and you have biology, which cannot change at all. Like I can go out there, grow out my hair, get gender reassigning surgery, get hormone replacement therapy. Obviously, my gender would switch in that case, and even my sex a bit too, because since that's medical, if I were to go like certain antibiotics have to be prescribed based on your hormone levels. Otherwise, you can face harm. So if someone comes in the hospital identifying as a female and their medical sex is a female, but they were a male at birth and they're treated as a male at birth, they could die potentially if you're using a strong enough drug.
Then here, I guess I have a question then. So what does gender, quote unquote, actually mean to you? You say it's something different from sex, and I won't say I subscribe to the liberal position at all, but I do kind of understand the argument that yes, there's biologically, physically what we are, but there's also sort of something innately what we are in terms of men and women. The difference with me is I don't think they're fluid. I don't think you can just make it up, but I am religious, right? I do believe in a soul. I do believe that there's something about a man that's more than just, his genitals versus female genitals. But what does gender mean to you then?
To me, gender, like I said, it's more of an identity term. It's more about how you choose to identify in relation to what your sex is. And obviously, like I've been reiterating, sex is that part of like that factual physical part of you. And then you have your biology, which is your XX or your XY. You cannot, nowhere in the coming future will a human be able to go in and change their gene to XY, whatever. You want to be a female to male, change.
Well, I hope not. They might somehow figure out a way to do that, but I hope not.
I think based on what CRISPR does, that would straight up kill you. So I don't know if that's coming at all. But yeah, that's my thought on that. I think gender is sort of like your name, and then sex is sort of like your height, things that are coded into your genetics, like your skin color, whether you have a freckle here or not. So that's my take on that.
So if you would acknowledge that male and female are two of the genders in your eyes, what differentiates male and female? Because obviously in terms of sex, according to you, yeah, that'd be XY, testosterone, estrogen. What would define the male and female gender?
How you would choose to identify with it. Like if you want to say the liberal, what pronouns you'd use, or sort of how you tell people you identify as, that's how the difference would be how you'd identify.
So there's in your eyes, there's no concrete, this defines a male and this defines a female in terms of gender?
In terms of gender, yes. I mean, obviously there's like you look at some of the short hair, more of a kind of like strong jaw outline, taller, more athletic looking, the biological characteristics of a man, you're going to think male. And that's something that you really can't take away from humanity. But I think there's no concrete, when it comes to gender, there's no concrete divider.
Do you think there are less concrete dividers is there any divider? Is it just literally in your eyes what you call yourself?
Yeah, like I just said, that there's kind of feelings about it. Like I want to look at someone and say, I feel like they'd be a boy. Like, those TikToks where it's like thirst traps.
Well, you might
get
canceled for that. I think that's a bit bigoted. No, just kidding. Go
ahead. That's the other thing. My problem with this too is people are just way too sensitive. I understand that you want to identify this way and someone messes up. If I call someone the wrong name, they don't flip out and scream at me. They're usually just like, oh no, it's this, not that. People need to kind of if you're going to treat it as your identity, identity is not a concrete thing. So if people mess it up because it's not a concrete thing, you can't treat it like it was a concrete thing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so
see,
that's why, yeah.
That's interesting, because very often when I hear these arguments, it's odd, because you're actually at least consistent about it. I hear oftentimes they'll basically make the argument for gender roles, because they'll say, well, you know, male and female, there's social constructs, this expectation, and then it's just incoherent, because at the same time, then so you're saying there's a male and female gender role. But that's sort of where I kind of feel like they're making my point, because I do believe there's sort of this natural male and female gender role. That's the sense in which I do agree with gender, because I do believe if you really look at any civilization, the moment it starts, down to our biology, down to even what you see in a lot of other mammals, you see this natural sense of like a female being more of a caretaker. She's meant to care for children, nurture, you know, more emotional intelligence. A male's supposed to be provider, you know, protector, stuff like that. And so I do think that there is something, if you want to call it gender, whatever it is, there's something about male and female that goes beyond the chromosomes. And obviously, I guess in that specifically, you could argue it can be slightly fluid, in the sense that, yeah, different cultures interpret maybe the gender role differently. They have different ideas of what it means to be a man and woman. But I would argue the theme overall is the same. But that's sort of the way I view that all, is I do think there's a male and female sort of innateness beyond our physical biology that does matter and is real. I just think that it should be preserved and kept, because I think, you know, in the same sense that biologically we're some way on the outside, you know, when you look at our brain, our hormones, all that stuff, I think we are a way on the inside. There's a reason why men will just naturally gravitate towards certain instincts, certain things. Females will do the same. You have exceptions, obviously. It's a huge species, but overall you see the same thing. And so those sort of my thoughts on the gender concept, I guess. Hey guys, Vince Dao here. Hope you enjoyed that clip from the Vince Dao Show. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And be sure to check out the Vince Dao Show live every weeknight here on this channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is a great show. Many are saying this. So leave a like, check out our other clips, and be sure to check out the show. Yeah, God bless.